Broadcasting the meeting on Channel 8, as well as wheatridgespeaks.org. So if you're interested in speaking at tonight's meeting online, please raise your hand on Zoom or on the dial-in number on the telephone call. A Zoom meeting link as well as dial-in information can be found on wheatridgespeaks.org. When it's time for public comment, and we have 4 opportunities for public comment tonight, based on those who wish to comment on your Zoom connection, please use your raise your hand button on the Zoom. If you are dialing in, please press *9 to raise your hand and *6 to unmute your phone. If you plan to speak online tonight, just keep your background noise to a minimum before you speak. And if you are simply watching the meeting, we encourage you to just watch on Channel 8 rather than or on wheatridgespeaks.org. So we appreciate your participation in tonight's meeting. We hope to create a friendly and respectful atmosphere for public dialogue, and we appreciate your help in this process. So with that, I would now like to call to order the City of Wheat Ridge Planning Commission meeting for November 3rd, 2022. So to begin, can we get a roll call of members, please, Tammy?
Yes. Jonathan Shelkey.
Here.
Jerry DeTulio.
Here.
Julianne Stern.
Here.
Melissa Antle.
Here.
Daniel Larson.
Here.
Christine Disney will be late tonight, and Will Kearns and Janet Leo are absent.
Great, thank you. The next item on our agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. So please stand and join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. The next item on our agenda for this evening is the approval of the order of tonight's agenda. Is there a motion to approve the order of the agenda?
I move to approve the order of the agenda.
Thank you. Is there a
I'll
second?
second.
Any additions or corrections? Nope. Okay, let's go ahead and vote.
Oh, sorry. Are we missing one?
I don't know why mine isn't registered.
Oh, yeah. Oh, you did the mayor one up on top. Hit the other,
Mayor Stark?
the center one.
Oh, I promoted my standing here. There we go.
I was like, the numbers.
We
are
haven't
not
had a
adding up.
commission meeting since July, folks, so bear with us if we're a little rusty.
Motion approved 5-0.
Great. Thanks so much. Next item is the approval of the minutes. Is there a motion to approve the minutes from our July 7th meeting?
So moved.
Second? Great, and let's vote.
Motion approved 5-0.
All right, the next item on our agenda is the public forum. I'll go ahead and open the public forum segment of our agenda. This is the time for anyone to speak on any topic that is not related to the three cases that we're hearing later this evening. If you do want to speak on those cases that are on our agenda for tonight, please wait for the public hearing for those. Anyone speaking is asked to limit their comments to 3 minutes, and you may not donate your time. Lauren, do we have anyone signed up to speak?
No one has signed up.
Okay, great. Anyone online, Tammy or Lauren?
There's a few people online. If anybody on, excuse me, Zoom would like to speak, please raise your hand at this time. There's no hand raising.
Okay, great. With that, I'll go ahead and close the public forum. And we will move to our public hearings. Our first public hearing is related to case number WZ-22-08. This is an application filed by Foothills Regional Housing for approval of a zone change from Commercial 1, C1, to Mixed Use Commercial, MU-C, on a property located at 7325 West 44th Avenue. And before we begin this case and open the public hearing, Commissioner Stern has requested an opportunity to address the commission.
Thank you. In the interest of full disclosure, I'd like to share that I previously worked at Foothills Regional Housing, ending in 2020.
Thank you, Commissioner Stern. So we've done this a couple times where we just run through a series of questions. The fact that you previously worked for the applicant does not disqualify you from participating in the case. The city attorney has always advised us that commissioners are disqualified from a hearing only if two things are true: if you have a financial interest in the application being reviewed, or if you feel that as a result of prior affiliation, you're unable to make a fair and impartial decision. So we'll do two quick questions. Ms. Stern, can you affirm that you have no financial interest in the application?
I do not have any financial interest in the application.
Thank you. And secondly, can you affirm that you are able to make a fair and impartial decision on any vote tonight?
Yes, I am able to make a fair and impartial decision.
Thank you. And based on your responses, there is no conflict of interest and you're allowed to remain on the dais, and as Mr. Dahl would say, have an obligation to remain on the dais for this case. So thank you for that moment, Madam Chair.
Great, thank you. So with that, let's go ahead and proceed with opening the public forum for case number WZ-22-08 for an application filed by Foothills Regional Housing. And do we have a report from staff?
Yes. All right. Good evening. My name is Elena Olivas Loera, and I'm a planner with the City of Wheat Ridge Community Development Department. I'm presenting case number WZ-22-08, which is a request for approval of a zone change from Commercial 1 to Mixed Use Commercial at 7525 West 44th Avenue. I would like to enter into the public record the contents of the case file, the zoning ordinance, the comprehensive plan, and this digital presentation. The property is within the City of Wheat Ridge. All appropriate notification and posting requirements have been met, and therefore the Planning Commission has jurisdiction to hear this case. The subject property is outlined in red. The property is located approximately at the intersection of West 44th Avenue and Wadsworth Boulevard. The area is primarily commercial along Wadsworth and residential to the east and northeast. The property measures about 2.5 acres in size and contains a commercial structure built in 1972, which was most recently a Pet Boys business. This is a zoning map of the area. Please note that an updated zoning map is currently not available due to the cybersecurity incident. The property shown in the top left corner was recently rezoned to mixed-use neighborhood, which this map does not reflect. The subject property is currently zoned C1 and is outlined in red. The site is largely surrounded by C1 and mixed-use commercial zoning. To the northeast, the site is adjacent to Residential 2 zoning, which is a city-owned parcel containing the Apel-Bacher Park. Other surrounding land uses are non-residential in nature, including a propane business, the former Bank of the West, which is now owned by the city and functioning as a construction office for the Wadsworth Improvement Project, and the office building owned by the applicant, Foothills Regional Housing. Recent development projects in the area include Town Center and Town Center North apartments to the southeast at 44th and Vance. This is a view of the subject property looking east from Wadsworth Boulevard. It is a 26,600 square foot commercial structure with parking. This is a view of the subject property looking north from West 44th Avenue. The applicant intends to rezone the property to allow a wider range of uses and to align the property zoning with the city's comp plan, the Wadsworth Corridor Sub-Area Plan, and other properties on the corridor. Should the zone change be approved, the applicant intends to redevelop the site for a multi-unit housing building. The current C1 zoning is reflective of long-standing commercial uses in the city. The C1 zone district allows a wide range of commercial uses, which include office, general business, and retail sales and service establishments. By contrast, MUC zoning allows residential uses, commercial uses, or a mix of the two, and the permitted retail uses are greater in number. The MUC designation would allow more flexibility for revitalization of the site and will provide standards for future redevelopment. The proposed MUC zoning allows residential uses, commercial uses, or a mix of the two. The MUC district is complementary to the context of the corridor and the surrounding zoning and land uses and provides a wider range of allowed uses than the existing C1 zoning. This table summarizes the current and proposed zoning's development standards. Most of the proposed zoning development standards would apply if the property redeveloped in the future. Most notable differences between the two zone districts include building height, setback requirements, and build-to requirements. The design standards in MUC are strict and include architectural standards, open space requirements, setbacks, and parking requirements. I would like to note that the maximum height in MUC is taller than C1, in part because the property is located in the area that voters exempted in 2008 from the charter's height and density limitations. That means that a single-use building can be up to 4 stories or 62 feet, and a building that is vertically mixed use can be up to 6 stories or 90 feet. As a requirement of the zone change process, a neighborhood meeting was held on November 3rd, 2021 in a virtual Zoom meeting setting. 5 people attended the meeting and did not have any concerns. Because Wheat Ridge is not a full-service city, we sent the application on referral to outside agencies, including fire, water, and sanitation, as well as completed an internal review. We did not receive concerns or objections from outside agencies. Before the hearing, the property was posted for 15 days and letters were sent to property owners within a 600-foot radius. Staff received no comments from members of the public prior to this hearing. We use several criteria to evaluate zone change requests, which includes consistency with the comprehensive plan and other applicable plans. Staff believes that the proposed MUC zoning is consistent with the policies and goals in the city's comp plan and the Wadsworth Corridor Urban Renewal Area Plan. The property is identified as a neighborhood buffer area and is along a primary commercial corridor within the structure plan, a designation used for existing commercial areas and which calls for the promotion of reinvestment in properties and the promotion of a mix of neighborhood supporting uses, including residential use and office use. The Wadsworth Corridor Urban Renewal Area Plan calls for many of the same policies and goals of the city's comp plan, including high-quality architecture and design, the incorporation of new and existing uses that accommodate existing and future market demands, and the revitalization of existing neighborhoods. The MUC zoning designation is appropriate for the subject property, allowing the existing land to become conforming and enabling the possibility of future redevelopment, which aligns with the city's adopted goals and policies. Ultimately, staff is recommending approval of the request for the following reasons. Based on the character and land use patterns of the area, the MUC zone district in this area is more appropriate than C1 in terms of allowed uses for the property. For that reason, the zone change should not have an adverse effect on the surrounding area. Staff finds the zone change to MUC is supported by the city's comprehensive plan and the Wadsworth Corridor Urban Renewal Area Plan, specifically the vision for high-quality architecture and design, the revitalization of existing neighborhoods, and reinvestment in aging commercial properties. This zone change request supports the comprehensive plan by enabling investment in the property and by aligning the zoning with the city's mixed-use goals for this corridor. Planning Commission will recommend a decision to City Council, who will also review the zone change request. If City Council approves the request, then the zone change is approved. That concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Madam Chair, is the applicant planning on discussing this?
Yes. Oh, sorry. No, there is not. Sorry, no. Yes, yes.
No questions, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do have a few questions that have come up. The first one goes back to the discussion about the original city's intent to rezone that entire area as mixed-use commercial, but these two properties, the bank and Pep Boys, opted out. Do we have any reason why that might have taken place?
We don't have that reason. The city's done 2 legislative rezonings in the last decade and have always given private property owners the option of opting out without the need to explain why. And so they simply did. I think, it's a big change to have your zoning change. I think some of our auto-related businesses were a little bit more concerned. It was an out-of-state owner at the time, so it's hard to speculate, but no specific reason was given.
Okay, the second question then gets to the request that we're looking at tonight. Request to change from commercial 1 to mixed-use commercial. We're seeing from the applicant that they intend to build multifamily housing on the site. My question is, why then wouldn't they go for mixed-use residential?
Yeah, we have a couple reasons. So the comp plan has designated areas from 35th to 45th that are designated for more intensive uses, which mixed-use commercial does fall into. Another reason is that the site is quite a bit larger than most of our mixed-use neighborhood sites. Typically, mixed-use neighborhood sites are designated for smaller ones. Another reason is that that particular block, most of it is already zoned mixed-use commercial. So I think making this one mixed-use commercial sort of unifies the zoning on that entire block. This was sort of the last portion of the commercial, existing commercial one there.
Great, thank you. This has to do with the rest of that block where the former bank was, property that apparently the city owns now. Will the city then seek rezoning on that property as well?
We don't know. That hasn't been a point of discussion yet.
Okay. Okay. All right, that's all I have right now. We'll, a couple for the applicant later.
I just had one question. So mixed-use commercial makes sense here because they can have the residential plus commercial could be on the first floor. It could be a mixed-use development where the commercial is on the first floor, residential above, sort of like we have on West End 38th. Is that kind of what they're looking at proposing as some small commercial in the area besides the residential, generally speaking?
In theory, they could. The zoning does allow for a mix of the two, but I will defer to the applicant. If you want to ask them, they can kind of describe what their proposal might be after the rezone.
Does the applicant want to just kind of state what their, generally the plans are?
Good evening. My name is Aaron Clokey. I'm the Director of Real Estate with Foothills Regional Housing. We are the housing authority for...
Can I get the spelling of your last name?
Oh, yeah.
And address.
Last name is Clokey, Kloke. Address is 11941 West 48th, Wheat Ridge.
Okay, and before you speak, since we are having members of the public come to speak at this point, I just want to make sure that we typically administer an oath for any participant in the meeting, which includes staff as well as applicants and members of the public. So in this hybrid meeting format, we're administering the oath in a different way, so if you comment or provide answers to questions, by choosing to come up here and speak, you are agreeing that the testimony you give will be the truth. So just the affirmation that is.
Understood.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you. Would you mind repeating the
Oh.
question?
I know this is early in the process, but do you have any conceptual idea of commercial versus residential on the property? Any ratios or any ideas of what you might see there at that location?
To be honest, no, we don't. We have not really delved too deeply into the planning of this site, really, and that's really just because we don't want to plan to put too much stock into planning until we have fully realized the zoning that's needed for multifamily. I mean, that, again, we are the housing authority for Jefferson County. So our mission is to provide housing. So that's our mission first and foremost.
Thank you.
Commissioner Shelkey, any questions? Okay. I just have one question. I think it's for Elena. And what is the difference in parking requirements between like a C1 and a MUC?
It's hard to compare for residential because C1 doesn't allow residential uses. So for the residential purpose, at least, MUC allows a 1 space per unit. Most of the other commercial allowances are more flexible in mixed use than they are in C1, acknowledging that most of this mixed use zoning is on a corridor where there are transit options or the ability to do shared parking. So requirements are slightly less in MU.
Okay, so you
compared to
have more
C1.
flexibility on, I mean, I would imagine under the MUC, especially along a major corridor, the
Yes.
parking requirements are,
Yes.
okay. Okay. Any other questions for the applicant or for staff?
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Commissioner Lance
These
Larson.
questions
Okay.
are for the applicant, please. Who owns the property now?
Currently, the property is owned by Foothills Regional Housing.
Okay. In your letter, your applicant letter, you state that the intent is to include high-quality commercial uses, medium-high density mixed use, and the property is surrounded primarily by mixed-use commercial zone properties, which certainly makes sense. The first concern that I would raise is that you're talking about a multifamily house and a multifamily structure that I'm guessing is going to be more than 2 or 3 stories. But you're not able to give us any more detail than that at this time. Is there any concern about some of the neighbors that you have there? One in particular, a retail facility that stores flammable liquids?
Yes, we've definitely considered the proximity to that location and the outside propane tanks. So we've discussed that with city staff, and we're definitely aware of the fact that we need to design around kind of those parameters.
Okay, thank you. The building that is just directly north on 45th Avenue, that's also Jefferson Housing?
Yes, correct.
It is, okay.
And that is, 7490 West 45th.
Okay.
Yes.
I had to kind of dig a little bit to find out what that was. Thank God for Google Maps.
Right.
The applicant letter further states that the property is, the intent is to improve an aging and underutilized property. And currently it was described as an industrial building, an eyesore and an undesired lack of activity. And that certainly makes a lot of sense. That will allow Foothills, the Housing Authority, to provide high-quality multifamily apartments with a well-built structure and dynamic new use, including an underused park to the east. I just saw last week that the Parks and Rec said they're going to be replacing the playground at Apple Betcher.
That's wonderful. I mean, and that's probably one of the most exciting parts of this site is that we have this jewel in this neighborhood, and we want to definitely, whatever our eventual plans are, is really to design around that park because it's a huge asset for the neighborhood.
The applicant letter further states that the property is 0.6 of a mile from Wilmore Davis, and Wilmore Davis is one of the schools that's on the list for Jefferson County to close. So between the time that this letter was created and the decision by Jefferson County, I guess, overlapped. But the school will be closing. As part of their.
That is correct.
And then, finally, and the city may be able to answer this one here. There's mention of a 30-foot wide private drive running from 44th to 45th. Is this already platted, or is this something that'll have to be put in?
There That does exist. And if the property were to be redeveloped, it would be formalized as a platted easement. Yes.
It's a private drive, though. In other words, it wouldn't get city services, it wouldn't,
Right. It won't be a public street, like
okay.
publicly city maintained.
Okay. And then I guess finally, the eventual intent would be to have a building that is sited fairly close to the street to sort of create that.
Absolutely. We recognize kind of the urban feel of Wadsworth and kind of the kind of, but we're also, kind of a balancing act between, the urban side of Wadsworth, but then we also have a neighborhood to our east. But it will be really important to us to kind of maintain that feel and be close and really make sure that whatever buildings that we end up constructing interact well with the public spaces, including streets and sidewalks and any other points of access.
And then finally, and I promise this will be the final, can you give us just a rough outline for if our zoning, if this is approved this evening and then the city council likewise, when would you actually see a plan and then development?
We would probably, assuming approval by city council, we would probably begin kind of conceptual planning in 2023 and be submitting submitting kind of rough concepts to the city probably in the third or fourth quarter of next year. So that's probably when your city staff would start seeing more detailed concepts of what we would plan there.
The existing structure then would likely go away,
Eventually, yes, that is the
Okay.
intent.
but a couple of years down the road.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Great, thank you. Any further questions from the commissioners? Okay, let's go ahead and move to the public comment portion of the hearing. I'll now open that hearing. If you wish to speak on this case, you have a maximum of 3 minutes to speak, and you cannot donate your time. Before I go further, Lauren, do we have anyone signed up to speak on this case?
No one has signed up in person, but I do have one hand raised on Zoom. Autumn, if you unmute, we should be able to hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, great. Hi, my name is Kathleen Jones. Autumn's my middle name, and we live at 7350 West 44th Place in Wheat Ridge, Colorado. So we are within the 600-foot of notification for this application. And we just had a few questions. We did attend the neighborhood meeting last year, and at that time, there were not a lot of details about the proposal. And it appears that there still are not a lot of details in terms of how this would impact the neighborhood, as well as any potential loss of parking on our residential streets. And we would just like to make it known that a building of this height would impact sunlight and various natural amenities that we have come to love in the Wheat Ridge neighborhood. We would also like to raise the question of if the applicant is proposing to purchase the propane business, seeing as they are already a mixed-use designation, to increase the land space that potential development could have. And I believe that's it. Thank you.
So could the applicant give us any information on that question they had? You may not know at this time, but
At this time, we do not have any intention of purchasing that property.
okay. Okay, great. And Lauren, that was our only request for public comment. Is that correct?
That is correct. That was the only hand raised. If you are on Zoom and you'd like to comment on this case, please use the raise hand feature now. And I'm not seeing any.
Okay, great. Well, with that, I'll go ahead and close the citizens forum. Before I entertain a motion from the commissioners, do any of the commissioners have any comments before? Okay, well, oh, yes, Commissioner Shelkey. Stern.
Thanks. My comment is that this clearly achieves a longstanding legislative intent that's, was expressed in 2011 and unifies the zoning along the corridor. I happen to live very close to this site and, certainly agree with the applicant that the Pep Boys building is underutilized and a bit of a blight in that site as it stands right now. So I'm excited about the opportunity to bring a more dynamic use to this site and enliven my neighborhood.
Thank you. Commissioner Larson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As I initially read this, I really wasn't quickly convinced that this was a good idea. I know that anytime we rezone property, it's a big deal. And as I kind of read through it, and then I thought about the importance of the intersection of 44th and Wadsworth to the city of Wheat Ridge. There are half dozen of these major intersections. This is one of them. This project will change the character of that intersection by a great degree after all the road work is done. So I had just a few misgivings early on, but as I read this and I read a little bit more about the Foothills Regional, I get the sense that the project that once it gets going will be worthy of Wheat Ridge and something we probably, again, will change the character of that intersection, but I think it'll probably be for the better.
Great. With that, well, I guess I will just concur with both Commissioner Stern and Commissioner Larson, where I do feel like we have few opportunities in our community to really help shape the character. And I think in order to truly shape character in our community, we have to provide more flexible, modern zoning to attract the type of investments we both need in our community and would like to see to kind of create more reinvestment. So I am in support of this and concur with both the comments that both of you said. Any other comments before, or shall we entertain a motion for a vote?
Madam Chair, is a motion in order? I move to recommend approval of case number WZ 2208, a request for approval of a zone change from commercial 1 C1 to mixed use commercial MUC for property located at 7525 West 44th Avenue for the following reasons. One, the proposed zone change will promote the public health, safety, or welfare of the community and does not result in an adverse effect on the surrounding area. The utility infrastructure adequately services the property. The proposed zone change is consistent with the goals and objectives of the city's comprehensive plan and consistent with the character of Wadsworth Boulevard. The zone change will provide additional opportunity for reinvestment in the area. And number 5, the criteria used to evaluate the zone change supports this request.
Is there a second? Second. All right, let's go ahead and vote.
Motion approved 5-0.
Great, thank you. Our second case this evening is case number WZ-22-01, which is an application filed by Chick-fil-A for approval of a specific development plan on a property zoned planned commercial development located at 3700 Youngfield Street. Do we have a presentation from staff? Great.
What?
Okay. While we're waiting, I'll open the public forum for this case.
There we go, I think. Hi, I'm Scott Cutler. I'm a planner with the City of Wheat Ridge, and this is case number WZ2201, request for approval of a specific development plan for a drive-through restaurant and the Applewood Village Shopping Center planned commercial development. I'd like to enter into the public record the contents of the case file and this presentation. Properties within the City of Wheat Ridge and all appropriate notification and posting requirements have been met. Therefore, Planning Commission has jurisdiction to hear this case. This is a 2020 aerial view of the property, which is outlined in red. And it's located at the northwest corner of the Applewood Village Shopping Center, or the southeast corner of 38th Avenue and Youngfield Street. The location was formerly an RTD bus transfer station, but has been vacant for a few years. And the redeveloped former Walmart is just to the east across the north-south drive in the shopping center. And then across Youngfield Street and I-70 to the west is the Clear Creek Crossing development, which is currently under construction. There's also a church to the north and a neighborhood to the northeast. And the property is zoned planned commercial development. It's part of the larger Applewood Village Shopping Center, PCD. And the property to the south is zoned C1 and contains commercial uses as well, but is actually not part of the Applewood Shopping Center. And then the mixed-use zoning for Clear Creek Crossing is shown in blue across I-70. And the church property to the north is zoned R1. The neighborhood to the northeast is zoned R1A. The request is for a specific development plan for a drive-through restaurant, which is a permitted use in the Applewood Village Shopping Center. And specific development plans are required to go to Planning Commission for approval to confirm that the site is appropriate and compliant with the requirements in the outlined development plan, and in this case, also the architectural and site design manual. As part of this request, the city is requiring some improvements to 38th Avenue and Youngfield Street, including building a detached sidewalk on both frontages and adding street trees and lighting. This is the site plan from the SDP, and that's also included in your packet. North is to the right on this image, and the building location is highlighted in blue. I'll share the proposed architecture in just a minute. The proposed drive-through canopy tunnel is also shown here in a lighter shade of blue, and I'll explain that in a bit as well. So the site gains access from the existing north-south drive through the shopping center, which is shown on the bottom of this image. And this connects to 30th Avenue directly and to Youngfield through another drive shown at the left of the image, and those are already in place. The developer will construct sidewalk upgrades on Youngfield and 30th Avenue, as well as new pedestrian connections into the shopping center and along those drives. The drive-through entrance will be at the north side of the site with 2 queuing lanes. The queuing capacity significantly exceeds the city standards in anticipation of a busy restaurant. The drive-through exit will be at the south side, and the access points are designed to align with existing access points along the drive to prevent conflicts and has been reviewed by the city's engineering division. The building is required to meet at least a 0 to 20 foot build-to requirement along the Youngfield Street frontage, with at least 40% of the frontage occupied by a building. The applicant is meeting this by building a drive-through canopy, which will appear to be part of the main building. This will screen the drive-through from Youngfield Street and will enhance this otherwise back-of-house elevation. The main entrance to the building will face east and the main parking area. And that's shown on the, bottom-ish of this image. And a small outdoor seating area will be located on the north side of the building. The site exceeds the landscaping requirements and provides numerous on-site trees and shrubs, as well as additional street trees. And this is shown in the landscape plan on the staff report. So this is the proposed architecture for the site. Building design is subject to the standards within the city's architectural and site design manual. The elevation facing Youngfield Street is at the top. Kind of hard to see. You can see the drive-through canopy, which is attached to the main building and appears as a building wall. This includes windows and transparency, so it is not a blank wall. The next view in the middle is looking southwest from the corner of 38th and Youngfield Street, and you can see how the canopy functions, allowing cars to enter, but screened from the Youngfield Street side. The bottom elevation is the one that faces east in the parking lot. The outdoor dining area is on the right of that image. The detailed elevations are included in the staff report and include primary materials such as brick and stucco. Lots of windows are provided on all elevations, and the facade is articulated so it is not a flat building. Since Wheat Ridge is not a full-service city, we sent the application on referral to outside agencies, including fire, water, and sanitation, and completed an internal review. There are no remaining comments on the SDP. Construction documents are currently under review by the engineering division, which includes the on-site construction as well as the required improvements to the public right-of-way. Before the hearing, the property was posted for 15 days, and letters were sent to residents and owners within a 600-foot radius. And we did not receive any public comments or inquiries about this application. Ultimately, staff has concluded that the request is consistent with the purpose of the planned development. The drive-through use is permitted on the property. All responding agencies have indicated they can serve the property, and the SDP is in compliance with the standards set forth in the Applewood Village ODP and the Architectural Site Design Manual. For all those reasons, we're recommending approval and requesting that the Planning Commission approve the request, which would be the only vote on this project. That concludes my presentation. The applicant will not make a presentation, but is here for questions. Thanks. I'm done with my presentation. Applicant is here, but they do not have a presentation, but everyone's available for questions.
I just had one question. Is there a reason why this came to the Planning Commission and City Council when this is not a rezoning? Is this a site development plan that's large enough that it has to go through the process?
Any plan development, specific development plan in a plan development is required to go to Planning Commission if it's a new building.
So this won't go to City Council if it passes?
Correct.
Oh, okay.
You'll be the last vote.
That's okay, thank you.
Scott, would you mind putting that color rendering of the facility back up? The canopy, idea of a canopy intrigues me. I don't believe I've seen, and this, if maybe the applicant could come up and address a couple of these questions, please.
Sure. Absolutely. Thank you. Steve Schwartz with Chick-fil-A. My address is 105 Progress, Irvine, California, 92679.
Can you spell your last name, please?
Schwartz, SCHWARTZ. Yes, I do. Yes.
Just a few things here, Mr. Schwartz, and I appreciate your coming all this way. in the
Absolutely.
snow.
Happy to, no, I'm excited to be here.
Tell us a little bit about the idea of the canopy. I have to go all the way to Arvada now to get my Chick-fil-A. Why put a canopy on this building?
It was primarily driven by the build to setback, if you will. So to get the building out to the street, in order to do that and have the pickup area at the right side of the car, we had to wrap the building that way. If we were to push the building all the way to the street, the pickup window would be in the wrong place for the car. So this is a very unique design. We have done a couple of these in the country, but very few. This will be a landmark building. I think I'm very pleased with how it turned out. I think it's a very attractive building, and it does provide that code requirement to be out by the setback, but still operationally function the way a building needs to function.
And help me understand how, I understand that if you got 2 lanes of traffic coming in, you can have some of your staff out there with iPads taking orders and whatnot.
Correct.
How does the food get delivered?
So the food will be delivered at what's traditionally a window. Right now, we're actually expanding that to a door. So it removes the barrier. So we provide much better customer service and can walk out to the cars. So we'll be able to deliver to the front car, and then the second car in the second lane food will be carried out to that second car.
And I trust your staff people are very aware of the fact that sometimes people leave quickly.
Yes, very, very much so. Our risk department is very aware of all of that. So yes, absolutely. There's designated, crosswalks. Team members typically wear safety vests, things like that. And at that point, 2 cars are stopped. And theoretically, where the intent is when people place their order via either the order point or, as you mentioned, iPads and what have you, as cars continue to move through that cycle, by the time they get to the door, the money has already happened, the order's already happened, the food has already been prepared, and really it's a transaction of food and have a nice day type of thing, as opposed to having to wait at the window. So we've done a lot of efficiency studies and things like that to try to make the drive-through as efficient as possible, but also as friendly as possible.
Yeah, no, it does. It certainly sounds unique. Is that wall that faces Youngfield, the exterior, is that solid, or it looks like it might be some?
It has solid, I mean, it's brick or stucco material, but it also has like window-like openings as well to provide that, essence of the building. And yet we didn't want it to feel claustrophobic where you're going through a car wash tunnel type of thing. It's meant to feel more open than that.
And I would think with, in the afternoon with the sun on the west, shielding the people in their cars from sitting in the sun for that.
It will help, yeah. Absolutely.
Is there access to the lot from Youngfield as well?
Well, just to meet code, yes, as far as like path of travel and things like that? Like-
No, for automobiles coming in, especially making a left turn. They'd be going south on Youngfield. Can they turn into the property?
Past our site, yes. Like just south of our site,
Okay.
there's an entrance to the development,
Okay.
which is on the south side of our site, yes.
And then sort of what, come around the back
Yep.
to?
Yep, you'd work your way through the center and then come in through the drive-through, or you park in the facility and
Right.
go in and dine.
Okay. And the east-facing side, I'd see has a lot of windows and whatnot. How many, what's the seating capacity?
I think we're around 80 plus or minus. I don't know it off the top of my head, but around 80. We've increased the size of our kitchen significantly over the last several years. Most of the design changes we've made have been back of house to keep up with production and capacity. But I think we're roughly around 80 seats.
And is that, would you consider like the typical size for a Chick-fil-A or bigger or?
Yes, I would say typical with our current design standards, that's pretty typical. The studies that we've found, about 60% or so, maybe even 65%, use the drive-through facility for convenience. So the dine-in guest component is typically a little smaller, but we also have a significant amount of third-party pickup, mobile delivery, things like that, that take people away from the dining room and are using other ways of getting their food.
Okay, very good. And then finally, what's the timeline for getting working on this?
As soon as we can. Really, we're all, well, significantly far through our construction documents at this point on the civil side. Our architectural side is following there shortly thereafter, so we'll be submitting as soon as we can. I'd like to be under construction, probably middle part of next year. So we'll be open by the end of 23.
By the end of 23.
That's our goal. Yep.
Then one last question, will there be extensive excavation of the site? I know it's just blacktop now, but will you be having to excavate?
Just to meet soil conditions and things like that we'll have to do, but as far as the major grade changing, no, it'll look similar to what you see today.
Does the building have a basement?
No.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Absolutely, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Stern?
I just have, I think, one question about the canopy. You mentioned in your applicant letter that part of the reasoning for the canopy and our build-to requirement is enhancing the pedestrian experience on Youngsfield and creating a walkable community. So I'm curious, Commissioner Larson briefly touched on the windows, and I can't tell from the renderings. Will there be actual transparency to provide more eyes on the street, or is it more of an appearance of windows?
Honestly, I don't remember. We went back and forth a couple times with that. There was Sorry.
I believe your architect Heather Harris is on
There's
here.
this on. Sorry, I was gonna mention, yeah, they are real windows. We
Okay.
did have.
Thank you,
change
Heather.
them to Yep, sorry.
No, you're fine. Thank you. Yeah, we went back and forth, but apparently we landed on putting in actual glass.
That's great. Thank you.
Heather, can I get your address, please?
My address for my
Work
firm?
address is fine.
It is 1755 Whittington Place.
Can you spell that for me, please?
Yes, it is. Sorry. I'm not sure either. Wittington Place.
Thank you.
Commissioner Tutulio, any questions? Commissioner Shelkey? I have one question for you, Scott, and it's maybe more of a clarification is what always, I do think that there's a lot of attention paid to the design. It looks really nice, but I was wondering, don't we have for this area, or maybe it's just on Clear Creek, like this modern agrarian theme? And so is that applicable? Are those standards applicable here, or am I misremembering where they apply?
The modern agrarian standards are uniquely to Clear Creek. So the Applewood Village Shopping Center just follows the city's standard architectural
Okay,
manual.
so it's the other side of the highway.
Right.
Okay. I mean, it is a very nice design, but when I was looking at the materials, I was like, where's the modern agrarian theme? That was the only clarification I had. So if there are no other questions, are there any comments from the commissioners before? Okay. Lauren, do we have anyone signed up to speak? Okay. All right. So thank you. With that, I will go ahead and close the public hearing. And there was no one on Zoom, correct?
Correct.
Nobody had raised their hands.
Okay. Okay, at this point, I've closed the hearing. Is there any final comments from the commissioners, or are we ready to entertain a motion?
I move to approve case number 17-2201, a request for approval of specific development for a drive-through restaurant on property located at 3700 Youngfield Street in zone plan commercial development PCD for the following reasons. The specific development plan is consistent with the purpose of the plan development as stated in section 26-01 of the Code of Laws. The specific development plan is consistent with the intent and purpose of the outline development plan. The proposed uses are consistent with those approved by the outline development plan. All responding agencies have indicated certain property improvements installed at the developer's expense. The specific development plan receives a bank of findings to the applicable standards set forth in the outline development plan with the city's adopted design.
Madam Chair, I'll second that.
Great, let's go ahead and call for a vote.
Motion approved, 5-0.
Great, thank you, sir.
Thank you all very much. We're excited.
Thanks to staff as well for the presentation. All right, we have one final case today. And this is case number ZOA-22-05, which is an ordinance amending Article 4 of Chapter 26 of the Wheat Ridge Code of Laws concerning requirements for final subdivision plats and in connection therewith, addressing race and religion-based covenants on title. Do we have a staff presentation plan for this?
Just a couple comments from me. So the city attorney has done a lot of the heavy lifting on this one. I think we described that a little bit in the packet. But we're here tonight at the direction of city council and because this amendment affects chapter 26. So in short, there are a lot of subdivision plats in Wheat Ridge that are pretty old, many dating to the 1950s and 60s, many dating even further back to the early 1900s. Older plats very often had private covenants. A lot of the reason of that is because there weren't HOAs with their covenants the way that we see them today. And we know that several of those plats in Wheat Ridge include covenants with discriminatory language. Federal law and federal case law disallows that the discriminatory covenants are illegal. And within the past year or so, both City Council and the city's Race and Equity Task Force have specifically asked the city attorney to explore ways to remove them. Because covenants are private and affect private property, there are limitations in what the city can do. We don't enforce covenants and we can't simply remove them. So what is offered in this code amendment is sort of the next best thing. If a plat that does have a discriminatory covenant comes in for a portion or all of it to be replatted, we will add the note that you see in the ordinance that deems those covenants to be illegal and unenforceable. So provided to you tonight is that ordinance with that language that will show up in the subdivision regulations, would be requested to be added by our case managers if we saw a subdivision plat like that. And with your recommendation tonight, this will go to City Council on December 12th. That's all I have.
Okay, great. Thank you, Lauren.
Mhm.
Yes, Commissioner DiTullio.
Just a quick question. I know that there's a lot of residential properties that have these covenants on it. So how are you're saying that they won't take them off of those residential properties unless they file to do it themselves?
Precisely, yeah. So if everybody in a subdivision that had a covenant like that agreed to remove it, they could do that. But the city, unlike how we can legislatively rezone property, we cannot remove the covenant from private property owners. So they can do it and we can deem it illegal.
Can one property come in or it has to be the subdivision?
So if the covenant is being removed from an existing subdivision, every property owner within that subdivision would have to be in agreement. What we more often see is there may be a plat with 12 properties that has a legal covenant. And we might see, like, you've seen these plats where 3 come in to replat to 5 lots. And so it's a portion maybe of that original plat, but we can on that replat, whether it's the whole thing or a smaller part, remove or deem illegal the covenant. So they don't all have to come in for a replat.
But one individual property on Balsam couldn't come in and have it.
I mean, they could, it would be unlikely because one property is rarely just changing its own lot lines unless they're splitting into 2. And the path by which an individual property owner could remove their covenants is probably not going to be through the platting process. But the reason the note is presented as such is it's the only time at which if you come in our door for an entitlement such as a plat, we can have an exaction or a requirement. And so it's the only opportunity for us to add this note.
Well, I guess what I'm asking, maybe I didn't say it right. Let's say one individual property owner has these on their
Sure.
plat and they just want to come in and say, take it off.
They wouldn't come to the city for that because the covenant is a private covenant. So we don't have any role in sort of
Okay.
creating it or removing it.
So you're not going to have a line out the door, of people coming in.
No,
It has to be through the county and the plat process.
recorded. Yeah,
Okay.
a recorded removal of the covenant. Correct.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Great. Well, let's go ahead and open the public hearing, or sorry.
Go ahead.
Okay. And I don't know if we have members of the public that are interested in speaking.
Nobody else is on Zoom.
Certainly no
Or
one
in room.
behind us. Okay. Well, then let's just continue we'll close the public hearing and I will entertain more questions from the commissioners. You guys are really eager about this one. Commissioner Larson.
The first question I have is, this is something I know City Council has discussed, and I think I read something they're going to be taking it up again. Why is it in front of Planning Commission? It sounds more legislative than something we're assigned for.
Sure. Anytime we change any language in chapter 26, it comes to you. So yes, it's certainly a council priority and directive, but because it's an amendment to the code in chapter 26, it's
Chapter 26.
correct, the zoning
Okay.
code. Yep.
And anytime a change is made anywhere in Chapter 26, it
Yes.
comes in front of Planning Commission.
Correct.
Okay. If a person buys an individual property that has, and kind of goes to Commissioner DiTullio's question, if they buy a property with one of these covenants attached, can they say, I want this gone? And if the seller doesn't want to, I don't know. I'm not sure how
I
it
mean,
would.
the parallel example is to think about some of your current HOAs and covenants. Like you can't buy into a condo with covenants and say, I would love to buy this, but I choose to ignore the covenants. So there's not a lot that an individual property owner can do for covenants that are platted for an entire development.
Okay. Go ahead.
Sure. Commissioner Stern, go ahead.
So my understanding is that the covenant is like, on a subdivision plat, is kind of like, it's an agreement between all of the property owners within the subdivision. So the only parties that have the standing to change that agreement are the parties that originally agreed to it. No governmental jurisdiction can directly take those off, and no property owner can take them off as well. I mean, Lauren gave a good example. The point of the covenant is to restrict the rights of whoever the future private property owner is.
What would be the difference between a covenant and an easement?
So an easement has to have a beneficiary and a grantor and a grantee. And it's usually you're giving the right to use property to somebody, like somebody to walk through, to access, or to put utilities in. Covenant is agreed upon set of rules of how you can and cannot use property, similar to zoning, but they're privately decided upon and privately enforced.
Thanks for clearing that up. Thank you.
Commissioner Stern, or Shelkey, I have you guys mixed up
Yeah,
today.
that's okay. Does it matter that the covenant was there originally in the subdivision, but now it may be the fifth or sixth owner that's on the property now? Does that make any difference?
There are some covenants that were written to expire at a certain time, but if that's not in there, it does not make any difference. They're sort of there in perpetuity until the group removes them. And again, this code amendment doesn't even remove it. It just sort of is the city's official chance to say, we recognize that that's on there, and we just want you to know that we think it's illegal and unenforceable. But the only way for them to actually be removed is for those collective group of private property owners to remove them. Doesn't matter how long or how old they are.
Through some sort of entitlement process.
Through it'd be a written document that usually a land use attorney would write and record at the county. Wouldn't
Okay.
even come to the city. Yeah.
And I think just a comment, I think these kind of things were common everywhere in
Yes.
the United States.
Yes.
Everywhere.
Yeah. There's the School of Mines actually is sort of an ongoing mapping process of all the subdivisions in the county, and there's a lot. Yeah.
Madam Chair.
Any other questions or comments from the commissioners?
Just one quick one. So I guess for the public to understand this too, really, these were redlining covenants that were put back before, so a lot of the laws were written now.
Yes.
They're saying you can't have these type of people here, whether it's religious or race or gender.
Right.
These are redlining laws that are, or covenants that are on these properties. Correct?
Yes.
But this is a way to clean this up as they get replatted and subdivisions come in for
Yes, exactly. As the property with that kind of a covenant is on, it's a way for us to sort of formally say it's illegal to have that covenant and unenforceable. Yeah.
Well, I think it's also a way to bring it to light.
Correct.
Right.
Yes.
Madam Chair, is a motion in order?
Yes, if we are done with questions and comments, I would entertain a motion.
I move to recommend approval of the proposed ordinance amending Article 4 of Chapter 26 of the Wheat Ridge Code of Laws concerning requirements for final subdivision plats and in connection therewith addressing race and religion-based covenants on title.
Is there a second?
I second the motion.
All right, let's go ahead and vote.
Motion approved 5-0.
Great. Well, that concludes the public hearings for tonight. Our next item, Lauren, is any new business?
I have a couple updates. It's been a while since we got to see each other. So I'll start with dates. No meeting on November 17th. We will have the board and commission dinner on November 30th at the rec center. Couple development updates. You've probably seen them already around town. So at Clear Creek Crossing, Dutch Brothers got their certificate of occupancy, and a lot of the construction activity has begun on the west side of Clear Creek Drive. So Lifetime Fitness, the extension of Clear Creek Drive to serve the second phase of apartments, and the apartment foundations will start going in here in the next couple weeks, probably. Gold Shopping Center had a couple new tenants open their businesses since we saw you last, and Mestizo Brewing on 38th and Pierce will probably have their CO within the week. So a lot of good activity. We've seen some of you at public events over the summer, but just a couple updates on special projects. The Let's Talk program finished the first round of survey questions and inquiries in Paramount Park and Southeast Wheat Ridge, and the second round, so the proposed sort of action steps, that survey is scheduled to launch on November 14th. 44th Avenue had an open house that was combined with the open space management plan, and we will be bringing the 44th Avenue recommendations to you on December 1st. And we'll have a subdivision plat that night. That's everything I had.
Lauren, as I was coming out of the grocery store the other day, the Safeway, I noticed that the building behind 4100 Wadsworth is going up.
Oh, yeah, the apartment building behind that office. Yes. Yep, that's possible. That was a plat maybe a year ago. Felt like a while ago, maybe longer. It's hard to remember.
It has been a while, but I recall thinking that at the time that the size of the lot was going to make it kind of difficult, but it looks like the way they've set it up, they'll manage both the parking and not make it look too out of character.
Good. Good.
Did you have an update on, not the Lucky site, though I'm curious, on, wasn't Joyride Brewing supposed to go into Gold's Marketplace? Is that still happening or did that shift? I know that's more ED, but.
Yeah, I think it was somebody who had been associated with Joyride. I don't know if it was Joyride.
Oh, okay.
In the eastern portion where the bowling, yeah. I believe they're still moving forward with the tenant like that there. I'm not sure.
Okay, yeah, because I thought they had said sometime in the fall they might be open, but
I don't know.
okay.
Yeah, I know construction costs definitely threw some people for a loop and just finding labor.
Right.
So some projects have been a lot slower than they expected. But I don't know that one off the top of my head.
Okay.
The property at 38th and Eaton, the land has been cleared.
Yes. Yeah, the townhome project. Yep. Their permits are in for review,
I'm sorry, the permits are,
under review.
oh, I see.
Mhm.
Okay.
Any other questions,
Oh,
comments, old business, anything
How about
else?
an update on Ward Station?
Sure. So a lot of townhomes coming online, parallels moving forward. We just heard this morning or yesterday that we were asking Toll Brothers, so they have the 200 townhomes, with interest rates changing and construction costs and all the sort of dynamic variables this summer. we were asking if that's changed their pace at all, and it has not. They shared that, I don't know how their financing works, but those home buyers could lock their interest rate for a year. So they are full steam ahead, no changes. We haven't had any development deals sort of walk away or freeze or pause with the economic conditions. So yeah, not like new projects up there, but they're all moving forward at a pretty quick clip.
Thank you.
That's great. All right, well, would someone like to make a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second, all right. We are adjourned.
Thank you, everybody.